I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky along with my good buddy John Salka. And today, John, again, we always have these conversations when we're traveling or we get on the phone or whatever, but I had a guy email me the other day, and you get them too. I get them all the time about I've got a new firefighter, and the whole generational thing we've talked about before, and this one, that, and the challenges and all that. And I know in class we talk often about breaking into Probie, your Probie, recruit, rookie, whatever you call your new person. Breaking that new firefighter in, him or her, and starting them from day one, from the moment they walk in the firehouse, on the right track to having a successful career. John, I think we've lost that. I think a lot of people are so busy looking for an app on their phone or their Huckleberry, as you refer to it, that they think that there's some magic wand you wave over this new firefighter, and forgetting that as a company officer, as a senior firefighter, as a chief officer, when we talk about breaking in the Probie, there's things you still have to do. You can't. There's no software program for out there. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And and what do you call them? A rookie or a Probie or a recruit, or people have different names for them, and they're all apropos. They're all great. There's really nothing like just human contact. Just and I'm sure we'll mention it today. And for those of you listeners that are listening to us, we really have no script for any of these shows. For any of these talks that Rick and I do, we just both basically so full of it that we have so much stuff to talk about in a half an hour. It's pretty easy, we never run out of stuff.
Although that's right.
But all kidding aside, there's a lot of different people that have a gigantic impact on the Probie, and company officer is one of them, and the firefighters that work their shift is one of them, and let's say their senior firefighter on their shift, or some places like Rick, they actually assign a senior firefighter as a mentor to a younger firefighter. So there are all sorts of people, but it's really human contact. My experience has been positive human contact, and not that everything has to be easy and kumbaya and holding hands or anything, but most of the time, good positive human contact is what builds great character in a young new firefighter. And we'll talk about it later. But my son Brian, who is now a firefighter down in North Charleston in South Carolina. I see it in him. I visited him. I rode with him for a couple hours on a shift a week or two ago, and I was quite impressed with the whole setup, how everything had sort of developed there. I could see his relationships between his officer and his senior guy, the guy that was driving the rig, and it was quite interesting, and quite, for me, it was great. I felt so good that he was in good hands. Well,
and one of the things, John, I think we've come a long way, but we still have to work on is the whole yelling, screaming, demeaning, humiliating way that people used to think was what you were supposed to do to the new guy or gal, which I always thought was kind of ridiculous and just we've talked about this every now and then. Yes, you have to coach loud. You have to, as we say, coaching loud once in a while, get their attention, because we are dealing with different folks with forget generations. We're dealing with people from different upbringings, different educations, different experience levels. But the day yelling at them, John, sit down, boot, or dumbass, or FNG. John, I was in, I won't say where. I was in a particular state, and I was going to do a class on a Saturday, and Friday evening we had a dinner with all the chiefs from the area, and we talked about just what are the challenges everybody's facing, and and we went around the room, and I tell you, I swear to God, almost every one of them said, we're not mentoring, we're not training the young firefighters, we're not doing this right, we're not doing that right, we're not blah blah. And they get all around to me. I said, well, okay, so let's talk about this. When you have your new firefighter start, when he or she starts in your department, first of all, what do you call them? A probie, a recruit, a rookie? And they all kind of went, well, we call them the FNGs. And I went, and I paused, John. I went, so remind me, what does that stand for again? And one of them said, F and new guy. I go, now everybody around this table just said that you think the biggest challenge is how we're not mentoring and spend enough quality time with our new firefighters, and you referred to them as FNGs. I mean, really? And I just think the bullying and all. And let me tell this real quick for our listeners, because John, you've heard me say this a ton of times. When three of my first three chiefs aides went out and rode out with you, I was all approved on our end, insured and all that. I've always said that. They were on duty like they're going to a class. In between this, they went for a 48-hour tour the first time. In between shifts, one of the guys, Dean, called me. And Dean's a good guy. He's good hand, good guy now, captain. And he calls me halfway through the shift, John. You remember the story. He goes, I said, how's it going? He goes, oh, my God. The first thing he said is, now I know what it means to be up all night after midnight. We were out with Chief Salka 9 times after midnight. And I said, well, pretty cold weekend, all this stuff. And he goes, I'll tell you, Chief. He goes, I'm embarrassed how we treat our rookies. They call them rookies down south there. And I said, really? Tell me. Well, why? He goes, do you know they don't yell at their probies here? They don't scream at them and demean them and call them names and call them boot or whatever. I said, really? And I was waiting for him to get down that path, buddy. He goes, yeah, he goes, they got a probie in here. First of all, they won't let them pay for their breakfast or their lunch or their dinner. And I go, well, yeah, because some of them are barely making enough money to survive when they're on probation, and especially if they live in a city. He goes, yeah, he goes, but they're fighting over them. Like, there's 2 firefighters. Like, one's like, he keeps coming over. Are you done yet? And what I found out was they each have their own area of expertise they share with the new guy or gal. They, it's like my turn, and I get to show them this part of the engine or this part of the truck. He goes, I said, so what are you gonna do? He goes, oh, I know what I'm doing. When I get back, we're changing this stuff. We're changing this shit when I get back, and no more of this yelling and screaming. And again, if you have to get someone's attention, and Coach Loud wants to understand that, but he goes, I just saw a whole different way of breaking in the probie here, and I thought. You know what I'm saying? It was
great story.
Oh, well, one of those guys.
And it's not to be confused with recruit school.
Right.
It's not. FDNY's got a pretty tough recruit school, and they drive them. They literally have a DI, a drill instructor. They advertise it on the department order. They have a handful of guys that grab it, guys with military experience and stuff like that. But they literally have a DI that stands up on a box in the morning, whether it's raining or snowing, doing the push-ups and jumping jacks, and they drive them, and they do a little yelling and screaming, but it's nothing personal. It's no name calling. It's just to break them in from civilian life into semi-military, into an organization where you're a team and you have to follow orders and stuff like that. I agree with you 100%. Once they get to the firehouse, it turns into more of a personal relationship between those numerous people we mentioned earlier and the new firefighter.
And don't you see it, John? Haven't you seen it over the years? You've got 40 plus years in the fire service, whether it's a volunteer outfit or a career outfit, the importance of breaking in the probie. I mean, I can think of very few things as important, aside from keeping your people safe and properly equipped and things like that, as breaking in your new firefighter. And it's not just their first day and sit down here, I'll show you this and all that stuff. I mean, walk me through, John, your thoughts on breaking in the new firefighter, the importance of that particular task.
Mm-hmm. And I know, like me, you've gone through the ranks. You actually, you went further. You became the chief of department. But let's talk FDNY. It's a year-long process. It's actually years long. I know guys that have a year and a half, 2 years. They're well off probation, but they're still on the junior end of the spectrum, and they're still getting a lesson on, gee, what do you do at the company party, or what do you do after the company party, or we're the guys that stay late to clean up, and some places I don't want to say overdo it, but some places have things squared away and written down and documented to the nth degree. Other places, I don't want to say they wing it, but they just have a routine that they follow. But everybody has their own way of doing it. And what you just said is correct. There's it involves so many things from starting a shift. When do you get in there? And what are you wearing? And meaning, your uniform. What do you have when you get off the rig? When is the rig checked? Who's checking the rig? Are you doing it by yourself? Are you doing it with another junior firefighter. If you have a question, who do you go to? When something happens in a firehouse, what has to be done? When should you walk away? When should you stay in the room and sit there and be quiet? When should you get up and leave the room? And there's all sorts of stuff that it's a pretty unique, let's call it a pretty unique society in the firehouse, right? It's a pretty unique society that we live in, and not human society, not society of New York City, America, but the society inside the firehouse is pretty unique. We go to work, suddenly we're doing a lot of dangerous, crazy stuff, and then 10 minutes later, we're back from that run, and we're kidding around in the kitchen with lunch or making a meal or in the supermarket talking to some little old lady on the meat aisle about, how many pork chops she got in her wagon. And it's pretty interesting how to break Probies in. And the more stuff you touch, the more angles there are, the more elements there are that we do, the more room there is for what? For mistake, for something being forgotten maybe or left out. I mean, you have that great story about that. It's just about a locker, but it's still a simple item that can be easily overlooked in the process of breaking in a new Probie.
You're talking about forgetting to give him his locker for his gear, for his turnout gear on the floor. Yeah. And the poor guy didn't want to ask nothing. He didn't want to be like the smart ass, or so he's carrying his gear around with him everywhere, bringing it home instead of, you didn't remember to give him a locker on the damn floor,
And there's another lesson. The lesson is that he wasn't going to say nothing. He was going to carry his gear home and say nothing. Why? Because he already felt what? Part of the team. He already felt loyalty to those other firefighters that he really just met maybe a shift or two ago. He already felt loyalty to them. He wasn't going to bring anything up to anybody. They didn't get a locker yet, even though he knew he probably should have had one. That's a success story right there, him not saying anything, because it shows that he's already got a little bit of allegiance to his brothers. And he probably was going to ask one of them next time he came into work, hey, when do you get a little more familiar? Am I going to get a locker to put my gear in or something, So I think you can even pull something positive out of that story.
Well, exactly. And going back to, you've heard me tell this story a lot, and I kind of bridged the two together because I've watched some of your guys do it. I've watched some of my guys do it, some of the senior guys, and that's going to be another show, the senior man. But that whole sitting them down, you mentioned, John, sitting them down, they walk in their first day, and we're talking about breaking them in. And one of the things, and it's kind of funny because I was in Colorado and had the privilege and honor of speaking in a particular department. They're a good-sized department, and they asked me to spend about an hour after class, John, with their Probies. I'm sorry, they're academy students. And I did, and I got through the talk, and I opened up for questions. And one of the guys in the academy class says, "Chief, I got a question for you. I'm from the corporate side." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." He goes, "What is with this whole scrubbing toilets, mopping floors thing they make Probies do?" I go, "They didn't explain it." And you know where I'm going with this, because it is so important to have that like I said, we're talking about the senior man later, but that firefighter sit down and break in that new firefighter, not the officer, not the company officer, but this is that firefighter sits down, like you said, and explains to him, "Look, we start our shift at 7 o'clock in the morning. You'll be here at 6, not 6:05. 6:05 means you're late. And don't tell us you're not on the clock yet. That makes our tea ditch. You'll get here. You'll make the tea. You'll put everybody's gear out. You'll get things ready. You're going to get in your uniform. You're going to get your stuff ready. And when the bell rings and it's time to start shift, you're already going to be working. You're going to be cleaning, doing things." And he told him, he goes, "Look, just because you sewed that patch on your shoulder, that doesn't make you one of us yet. You need to come into here and prove to us why you want to be here. All this scrubbing toilets and mopping and cleaning floors and doing the pots and pans, that's not hardship labor. You're actually showing all of us here how bad you want to work here. There's a street lined with people that want to work as firefighters. You got the job. You need to come in here and show us how bad you want to be here, how bad you want to work here." And he tells them, he goes, "If you ever called sick on Christmas morning and keep Joey over here from being with his kids, but maybe their last Christmas with Santa, you'll hear it from us. If Tommy's mother passes away, Cindy's grandma passed away, you'll be at the wake or the funeral in your uniform out of respect. And if you're not there, it's so Anthony can go and you're covering the shift." Again, we stop on the way home every 2-3 months from shift and have coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and we talk, you're going. We go fishing, Gulf of Mexico, charter boat every year, you're going. Every winter we take our family skiing in Colorado, save your money, you're going. The bottom line is you need to come in here and prove to us why you want to be here. And when you're done proving to us why you want to be here, we'll show you why you want to be here. And all of a sudden, right, the light bulb comes on and people go, God, that's something I should be doing with people. You guys actually have in 45 engine in the Bronx, where you were housed out of an 18 battalion, 58 truck. You've got the Probie 10 Commandments, right, John? That you guys
they got it in writing, and eventually they hand it out to each of the new firefighters when they arrive. Quite interesting. Most places have something similar. It's not always in writing. Sometimes it's just a list of stuff that they give to them. Sometimes it's a list of stuff they recite to them, maybe a couple of items a day for the first couple of days that they work. And there's some quite interesting stuff on there, and it evolves, it changes. There might even be we may even have the copy that you and I are looking at. It may even be old. There may even be stuff on there that's evolved off or been changed a little bit. But for the most part, there's always a good solid list of. It's almost like standing orders in a volunteer fire department or in the military, stuff that just applies all the time, and they can. I know a lot of Probies kept that right inside their locker. They open up their locker door, and there was that list. They just for reference, just so they can take a quick glance at it and see if they remember if they're allowed to do something or be somewhere.
Well, John, I grabbed a copy here. I've got it because we sent it out so much, and it's titled Engine Company 45 Probie 10 Commandments. And I won't read the whole thing, but the first one is, welcome to the FTNY and to Engine 45. You are fortunate to have been appointed to the greatest fire department anywhere. Additionally, you are lucky to be assigned Engine 45, a company with a proud history of excellence. And it talks about the following suggestions. Right off the bat, you're telling them you're blessed. You've been given the chance of a lifetime, man, to be part of a great fire department, a great engine company. And,
boy, are you lucky. Boy, are you lucky to be here with us. Right?
Oh, God. So the first one is arrival. We talked about that. You need to get there early. If you're not there early, you're late. The start of the tour, John, all the following duties, and that's a thorough check of all their SCBAs and pass alarms and verifying all the tools are present.
The new guy's always a busy guy in the beginning of the tour. His gear, the whole rig, all the compartments, everything.
Oh, checking hose beds, all nozzles, assist the chauffeur in any maintenance or on apparatus. Verify the presence of your protective equipment, including gloves, flashlight, chalk, spanner, all the rest of the stuff. There's a laundry list of things. Then the next one, number 4, is response to alarms. And it's, you talk about this all the time, and I actually show a picture of your guys at a call where they are ready to do battle right now, and yet in their head they already know it's going to be either a gas leak or more than most. What's really going to be is an odor that people thought was, but they're ready to do battle. And it talks about, John, the assignments here, and then you guys get into training. The drills and the tour, and how important. I mean, when you talk about breaking into Probie, right from the get-go, telling them how important training is for the whole rest of their career. Because we said it before, this isn't about delivering sandwiches or pizzas or newspapers. There are no do-overs. This is pretty serious stuff we're doing. And training.
And they instill that in the academy. They break them into the academy about how important training is and what they can expect when they get to the firehouse. And I imagine about 99% of it's true, if not 100% of it. If not, there's some places probably doing more than what they're expecting. And one of the interesting things that they started it years and years ago, it's got to be a couple of decades now, was the training notebook. Probie's got a training notebook. It's a composition. It's the marble, the black and white, composition notebook. Everybody gets one, and it's a training notebook, and there's a certain list of items and occurrences and events that they're supposed to record. Every shift is supposed to be recorded there. Work the 9x6 and Engine 4-5 on, June 21st. Captain Smithers and Fireman Joe and Fireman Brian. He lists all that. And then, had a great run, interesting car accident, saw the Hearst tool in action for the first time with the truck, and, we stretched the line. And they go on and on and on. If they have a job, they have to write about it in there. There's certain things that are absolutely required. And then, obviously to legitimize this thing, there's a company officer requirement and a chief officer requirement for review of that book periodically. Company officer has to look at it, I believe, once per pay.
Don't you wish that we would have done that, though, John? Don't you wish? Could you imagine if John Salka kept a journal?
Yeah, when I was in 11 truck, I wish I had a training notebook from 11 truck.
Oh, God.
So it turns out to be a little personal notebook is what it turns out to be, even though you're doing it for the job.
God, I wish I'd done it.
And then the chief has to look at it once in a while. And I'm telling you, company officers and chiefs look at it. I remember looking at one time and telling the guy, and I started looking back at the shifts and seeing, that he missed a couple. I said, looks like you missed a couple entries here. Yeah, we had some pretty busy shifts, chief. And, I said, listen, I understand busy. I've been around for a while myself. I said, but This is a requirement for the job. And this is going to be looked at. And they told you, and I'll remind you again, this is going to be looked at when you get off probation. Somebody sits down and reads through this whole thing. And a couple of times I even took a mark in there. I said, you know, the book looks great, great entries, doing a lot of work. You know, try not to skip any days so you can keep this thing up to date, you know, and you keep a positive outlook on it. Eventually they turn those things in. I don't know if they do this anymore. But back when I was in the 18th Battalion, they turned those things in at the end of probation. They're actually looked at and rated. They come up with the best one for the class, and that firefighter can pick wherever he wants to go. Now, most guys then went to a company, but then over the course of a year or two, they went to 2 or 3 different companies. They were on a Probie rotation, A company, B company, C company. A is like the busy places, C is the middle of the road, you know, A, B, C. And then when they get done, they were given the opportunity, especially if they went somewhere that really liked them. So they get the number 1, see a couple of different places. Number 2, record all their stuff on that Probie notebook. And then at the end of the probationary period, which is a year, a guy in my firehouse actually left, Kevin Shea, who was seriously injured and put off the job on 9/11. But he left 45 Engine, which was his primary first stop. He ended up going to 35 Truck after 3 years because he wanted to try that. And he did it as a result of having probably the most dynamic, interesting photos and everything else in his notebook. He did a great job.
Oh, like I said, God, every time you tell that story in class, I sit there and I actually get a little depressed because I'm like, God, I wish I had done that. It's too late now. I wish I had written down, you know, just made notes throughout my career. So,
and let me add one more thing to that. It doesn't have to be this big sort of intricate program like the FDNY has. You can be the captain of 7 Engine in the Toledo Fire Department and say, you know what? That's a great idea. I just heard Lasky and Salka talking about. I'm going to do that in my company. Hey, Billy and Tommy, you guys are the newest guys. Here's a notebook. I want you to do this, this, and this. You can even do it locally in your own firehouse between the officer and the probie just to gain the benefits of that program.
And how about this? How about this? As the company officer, you order yourself a case of those, if you will, a box of those from the office supply place. And every time you have a new firefighter start, you give it to them as a gift. You give it to them. They're very right. You're sitting down having that talk with them, their first tour or their first night in the volunteer fire, whatever. And you as you're explaining this, you as their boss, your lieutenant or captain, you actually give them that book, that journal, and maybe even write a little note in there.
Right.
Welcome to the company. Also, oh, what a great look, folks. First of all, if you're listening, if you're at all curious about the Probie 10 Commandments, because I know we send it out to a lot of people at the Company Officer Academy, because, you know, it covers house watch duties, committee work, administrative duties, medical leave, miscellaneous, and then it finishes at the end. I love this statement, John. Fly with the eagles, don't wallow with the swine. I'll go out there and say to our listeners, if you want a copy of this, email me at chieflasky@gmail.com, Lasky, chieflasky@gmail.com, and I'll send you a copy of Engine 45's Probie 10 Commandments. And adjust it and tweak it. And you know, St. Catharines, John, remember our buddies from St. Catharines over in Ontario did an incredible book for the Probie. Oh my God, it's one of the best books written. Jason Visser and them. St. Catharines, Canada did a great job with their Probie book. Again, for our listeners, they're just over into the border into Ontario. Great fire department, great leadership. So John, we got like a couple minutes here. We're talking about breaking in the Probie. You know, if you could summarize the importance of having that impact on them. Let's take their first day, first week, first month, first year. You know, let's lump it into there. The importance of us breaking into Probie and the outcome.
Well, obviously the importance is gigantic because the Probie is the future senior man, is the future company officer, is the future chief. Sometimes you look at it when you're looking at Facebook, all of a sudden you see a picture, hey, you know, Chief Thomas, 36 years on the job, and here's a picture when he first got on the job with me in Engine 2. And you're looking at these 2 young mopes, these 2 young kids with their eyes wide open, and one of them is now the chief of department. Every young man and woman that joins the fire department is the future. They're a segment of the future of the fire department. How you break them in, how you set them, and what direction you point them is very important. Because every fire department, along with having all-stars and great guys and great gals, everybody's got a couple of slouches and a couple of guys that come in to rest because they're putting in fences or putting on roofs or building houses on the side. And there's nothing wrong with doing any of that. I think it's great. But some guys turn the fire job into a part-time job, into the second job. And even in the volunteers, some guys just show up for the points. You don't see them after midnight. You don't see them, before 6 in the morning. You don't see them for hose loading night, but you just see them for the interesting stuff. And we don't want to create those guys. And those guys and gals are creative. That doesn't happen by accident. Sometimes people are surprised. Really? Billy Ryan, you got him in your firehouse, and he's not one of your favorite guys? He said, man, I worked with him at the YMCA. I worked with him at the, whatever. What a great guy. And sometimes they just get into bad habits at the firehouse because they get broken by bad bosses or bad crews. So the point is, how important is it that we break in our probies and our new people? Well, my God, I don't think there's really anything more important than that. Yeah.
You know what? The only people you can blame 99 times out of 100 for somebody not working out right is yourself. They're doing what you've allowed them to do. They're doing what they thought. Like you said, you get with a bad company officer, a lazy one. Oh my God, what a great way to ruin a great firefighter.
One more quick story. I believe we were in a seminar, maybe company officer academy. It doesn't matter, but it was about a guy in a company, and this firefighter was complaining at a break. Oh, I got this guy. He's a great guy, and he's active, and he's good at fires, and I comes in early, and I just love the guy. He's a great firefighter. But he disappears at the end of the shift. I never see him again. He never shows up for funerals or wakes. Company picnic right in town. He doesn't bring his family. The guy is really absent from everything except for work, and he's a great firefighter. And it hurts because he could contribute and he could enjoy it so much more. And I said, well, how many years do you have on the job? He said, oh, I got 10 years. He said, I'm one of the senior men in the company. He said, oh, well, it's your fault. And he spun around and looked at me like, it's my fault. I said, yes, it's your fault. How could you expect a guy with a year or two to show up at wakes and weddings and funerals and picnics and until somebody says, hey, oh, by the way, you know what? Tommy Ryan's mom passed away. It's up on a blackboard in the kitchen. You really should either come to the firehouse and work for the guys that know him and work with him, or go yourself to the wake of the funeral. And we got the company picnic next month. Make sure you bring your family and your kids. And, you really sort of not expected to be there, but don't miss it. You're part of the company. You're part of, you got to get them going on all the other stuff. You can't just expect them to figure that out. People work for UPS. They work for, Grumman. They work for whatever they worked for. They didn't necessarily have company picnics and things and events like that. So sometimes you gotta draw them in a little bit, especially as a senior firefighter. Let folks know what's expected of them, or an officer, of course.
Well, and I remember that story, and what I also remember is a follow-up, John, of when guys get a hold of you later and go, you know what? Yeah, I missed my mark, and I've changed. I pushed the reset button. This is what I'm doing with our probies now from day one. For our listeners, there's going to be another episode of Old School where we're actually going to walk you through what you should be covering with your brand new firefighter, your newest firefighter on day one, you as the company officer. We'll talk about that. But yeah, and John, you're exactly right. If we don't hit them right from the beginning, we said this at the very beginning of the show, if we don't tell them right from the get-go, right from the moment they walk in the firehouse, like you have in 45 Engines' very first statement, in essence, what you're saying is, you're the luckiest person in the world. You work at the greatest fire department, the greatest job with the greatest engine company. If you just wrote that on the back of your hand and just read that every now and then, just as a reminder of how blessed you are.
And most firefighters, you remember when you first joined? I remember when I first joined a couple of departments that I've been in over the years, both volunteering and career. Everybody wants to fit in. Everybody wants to be part of the crowd, part of the group. Everybody wants to be in, and you're the newest guy, nobody, nothing there. And they're laying it out for you, and that's from your perspective. From the perspective of the company members and the company officers, let them know what's expected of them. And most guys and gals are going to step right up. They're going to jump right in with both feet and try and do everything and more. That's been my experience.
And you're exactly right. They are. Again, folks, in the absence of you not breaking in your probie the right way, it's like you're throwing the dice, man. You're hoping, just hoping what happens. It's like a bunch of ducks flying around a thunderstorm, hoping what happens for the right reason.
You get stuck with the mediocre results as well. If you don't break them in right, guess what? You got them.
That's right. Exactly. That you just produced that. So exactly. So hey, you know what, folks? We're gonna end this episode, if you will, of Old School. But we've been talking about breaking in the probie and the importance of you as a firefighter, a senior firefighter, as a company officer, as a boss, as a chief, of breaking in your firefighter on day one, day two, that first week, that first month, that first year. They have their whole career ahead of them, and you have you have an incredible opportunity to have that dramatic impact on their entire career by breaking them in just right. So take the time, no bullying, no yelling, no hollering, coach loud when you need to, but remember where you were at when you said that great, John. You know, we all remember when we first walked into the firehouse. We're all walked in there nervous, a little scared, everything else, and just remember that. Break them in right, and do the right job. John, email if they want to get a hold of you.
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And I'm at ChiefLasky@gmail.com. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Old School. Catch us again if you haven't already, whether you listen to us on iTunes, spread the word on iTunes or on YouTube. We've got episodes coming out pretty much weekly. Let us know what you think. Give us a shot when you get a chance, and hopefully we'll see you at one of our programs in the near future here. Hey, we end all our shows with a very important phrase, and that is, keep the men and women serving in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means never forgetting.